the more I fall into my goddess energy and just full on living in my femininity, my true feminine energy, and being understanding what a goddess is and how to move like a goddess, like really, really studying, I started to look back into a lot of the goddesses that were demonized. And when you do that, you realize a lot. You realize that a lot of men demonized them off of things that they did. And women retaliated, and they didn't like that. Women have been, and still are in some ways, demonized, no matter what we do. And like I said, the more I sit in my feminine energy and I understand what dark feminine energy is, and I commend and I suggest all women look into dark feminine energy, because a lot of us have dark feminine energy. But when we describe what dark feminine energy is, it sounds like dark feminine energy sounds dark, but it's not. It's powerful. You put down your boundaries. You're standing up for yourself. Like, the two most powerful to me goddesses that I think were demonized was, number one, Ashera. She was God's wife, or Queen of Heavens. It was a title given to a number of ancient sky goddesses worshipped through the ancient Mediterranean, ancient Near. So a lot of sky goddesses. And then when you read ancient texts, you have Inanna, or Anat, or Isis, Nut, Asher. They are all possibly Ashera. So Isis, and this is what I realized too. You study ancient texts, a lot of the names are very similar. So Lilith may appear as something else in an ancient text, but the name has been changed due to religious and cultural and languages, literally. You also have, she was also known as she who treads on the sea. So when you think about she who treads on the sea, to me, I'm Haitian, I'm Jamaican, I also think about who? I think of Yameya, I think of Mama Wata. I think of those mother goddesses of the water. You know what I'm saying? Ashera is so powerful, but she's so demonized at the same time, and it doesn't make any sense. None at all. Well, actually, it was because men were jealous, to be honest. Now let's take a look at that. So let's read. It says, Ashera, known across the ancient Near East by various other names, such as Ashtar or Istar, right? Isis, right? She's also, many English translations prefer to translate Ashera as a sacred tree. They don't even refer to her as an actual deity or goddess. That's just fucked up. This seems to be this part seems to be driven by a modern desire, clearly inspired by biblical narrative. So they just wanted to put the narrative of only it being one sole God, which is Yahweh, right? Mentions of goddess Ashera in the Hebrew Bible and Old Testament are rare and have been heavily edited by the ancient authors who gathered the text together. So yeah, they just simply edited her out as much as they could. And then what's highlighted here, pay attention. Ashera as a tree symbol was even said to have been chopped down and burned outside the temple in acts of certain rules who were trying to purify the cult. The cult, which means that of Christianity or whatever the fuck they was trying to do, okay? And focus on the worship of the single male God, Yahweh. Even here it says, Yahweh commanded the destruction of her shrines so as to maintain purity of his worship. So that way he would only be the only one worshipped. It even says here, God had a wife, Ashera, whom the book of Kings suggested was worshipped alongside of Yahweh, which means that Yahweh and Ashera was both equally ruling and worshipped. So the more I look into these stories, and the more you go back and you read ancient texts and history, you realize that women were worshipped and were upheld. It wasn't until this fucking matrix literally created this bullshit. And who was I listening to? I think I was listening to Princella, and she said, oh, was it Princella? I don't know, something about a creatrix, and the creatrix wasn't created, or was it? Wow, it. I'm gonna come back to that point because I have something where I'm going with this. But yeah, look for part two, because I'm gonna talk about another goddess.